the guardian of the last seed. In a land where the wind carried the scent of dry earth and the rivers had begun to fade, there was a boy named Naru. He lived in a valley where trees once stood tall, where fields once bloomed with golden crops, and where the streams ran clear and cool. But now, the land was cracked and thirsty, the air heavy with dust, and the people whispered of a time when the rains had not abandoned them. The elders told stories of the great forest that once covered the valley, a place where the trees stood so close together that their branches wove a roof against the sun. Birds sang in the shade, animals drank from the rivers, and the people lived in harmony with the land. But over time, the trees had been cut down for homes, for fire, and for farmland. The people took more than they gave back, and one year, the rains simply stopped coming. The rivers dried, the soil cracked, and the valley became a place of dust and memory. One evening, as Naru wandered near the last great tree of his valley, he noticed something unusual, a tiny green sprout pushing up from the roots. He knelt and brushed away the dust, revealing a single seed, its shell smooth and dark, half buried in the dry soil. His heart quickened. It was the last seed of the old trees, the last hope for the valley. He knew the land could no longer feed it. The ground was too dry, and the sky too silent. If he left it there, it would wither before it had the chance to grow. Naru cupped the seedling in his hands, holding it as carefully as if it were a flame. He knew he had to find a place where the rain still sang, where the earth could hold roots once more. The journey for water. Naru set out at dawn, with the seedling wrapped in damp cloth and carried close to his chest. The wind tugged at his clothes, whispering through the empty valley, and the dust rose in soft clouds beneath his feet. He first walked toward the east, where the sun rose and where his grandfather once said the rivers flowed wide and endless. But when Naru arrived, he found only a dry riverbed, its stones bleached pale by the sun. He knelt and touched the cracked ground. "Where has the water gone?" he asked. But the river was silent. Determined, he turned south, toward the hills where the last wells were said to remain. He climbed the steep paths, feeling the seedling grow lighter in his arms as his own strength began to fade. At the top, he found a well, but when he peered inside, he saw only darkness, no water, no life. For days, he searched. He asked the wind where the rain had gone, but the wind only sighed. He asked the land why the trees had vanished, but the land only cracked beneath his feet. The sun watched from above, unblinking, and still, Naru carried the seedling, shielding it from the heat, sharing his own water with it when his own throat was dry. His feet ached, his body grew weak. But he never let the seedling wilt. Then one evening, after many days of searching, he saw it, a place where the grass still swayed, where a stream still whispered, and where the earth smelled of life. The land was different here, softer, darker. The trees that remained stretched their roots deep into the ground, drinking from waters hidden below. Naru fell to his knees, cradling the seedling. He had found its home, the planting of the seed. With careful hands, he dug a small hole in the richest soil he could find. He placed the seedling inside, covering its roots with earth, and pressed his palms gently against the soil. Then he whispered to it, telling it of the land it had come from, of the trees that had once stood tall, of the wind that had carried their voices. He told it of the river that had turned to stone, and of the valley that had gone silent. "You are the last of them," he said, "but you will not be the last forever." He sat beside the seedling until the stars blinked awake in the sky, until his eyes grew heavy. That night, as he drifted into sleep, he dreamed of the valley as it once was, green, alive, filled with the rustling of leaves and the scent of rain. And in the darkness, the clouds gathered. The rain came at dawn. It was not a great storm, nor a flood, but a soft, steady rain, the kind that sank into the earth and promised life. Naru woke to the feeling of cool drops against his skin, and when he looked at the seedling, he swore he could see it stretch just a little taller. The tree that remembered. Years passed, and travelers came and went, whispering of a lone tree that stood in the middle of a once barren land. Its roots were deep, its branches wide, and its leaves sang with the wind. Beneath its shade, people gathered, drinking from the small stream that had returned with the rains, and those who rested there would hear the story, carried by the breeze, of a boy who had carried the last seed, of a journey through dust and silence, and of a promise that had grown into something greater than himself.